The Hypnobirthing Toolkit is a complete hypnobirthing and birth preparation course helping you to go into the birth of your baby with confidence and positivity. It's completely self-paced with pre-recorded videos, presentations, audios, PDFs, plus monthly live classes. It's a more affordable and flexible way to learn hypnobirthing and help you have the positive birth experience you deserve. Follow the link in the description below to begin your positive birth journey today. Hello and welcome to the Bell Mama Hypnobirthing and Positive Birth podcast. My name is Ellie Waddington. I'm a hypnobirthing teacher, antenatal instructor and positive birth coach, and I'm here to help you go into the birth of your baby with a positive mindset. Every week I share my top tips, advice and amazing birth stories to help you go from fearful and anxious about your birth to positive and confident. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and let's get into this episode. Hey gorgeous mama, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I am so happy that you are here. This week I have the most amazing birth story to share with you. This birth story is from Leah, who shares with us her amazing journey with getting pregnant and birthing twins. Oh my god, this story is so amazing and I'm so excited for you to hear it. So here it is, enjoy Leah's amazing twin birth story.
Fab. So with my first pregnancy, we got pregnant July 2021. I was lucky that quite a few of my friends got pregnant at the same time or had already had babies. So there was lots of pregnancy, hypnobirthing discussions just going on generally in my friendship groups. I was really lucky that one of my best friends, Hannah, is like a self-confessed nerd. So anything she's interested in, anything that happens to her, she finds out everything about. So I knew that she was interested in hypnobirthing, that she'd looked into it. So she was my go-to person throughout that pregnancy. She mentioned hypnobirthing to me. A few other people I knew that were pregnant or had babies had mentioned it, and I knew it was right up my street. It wasn't something. I know some people go into hypnobirthing because they're scared of labour and birth. It wasn't something that I was scared about anyway, but I was just interested in, obviously, this is obviously working for people. What is it? Obviously, it has got a bit of a idea connected to it. If people don't know what hypnobirthing is, my husband was the same. And he was like, oh, what's that then? Thinking it, as people do, thinking it's just this wishy-washy thing of just breathing and just your baby pops out. And I was like, no, it is, the main thing I took from it in both pregnancies was understanding what was happening to me and what was happening, what is labour, what is your body doing, because I thought if I can understand it, then hopefully I wasn't fearful then, but in the moment, obviously, I didn't want to then be overcome with pain and thinking, is this normal? So I thought if I understand what is meant to be normal, then maybe I'll have the tools to deal with it then. So my first pregnancy, I didn't do any groups or anything like that. I didn't really know of any around. I just lots of my friends hypnobirthing books, listened to like YouTube videos of people who had done hypnobirthing, listened to like hypnobirthing tracks as well on YouTube, watched lots of positive pregnancy and labour videos, anything to be just fill my mind with this is how it's going to go. This is how positive it can be. There's nothing to be scared of, which was already my mentality. But I think the closer you come, the closer you think, okay, I do actually have to do this. And this is the first time and what could happen. So I found a lot of trust in hypnobirthing then. Obviously, I spent a lot of time on my first pregnancy practicing it all. In the bath, I would do like the meditation, the breathing exercises, and then I just generally found that I wasn't scared for any of it. I was really excited, really trusted what my body was doing throughout the pregnancy, throughout labour, and I also just trusted, which I know a lot of people take away from it. It's not if you study hypnobirthing, you then get to have your dream birth, and you're definitely going to have a pool birth, and you definitely have no pain. And it wasn't about that. It was about there are lots of options that could happen, and it's about obviously understanding why it's happening, understanding the right questions to ask, so you're comfortable with what's happening, rather than just going with what doctors and nurses say on whim, and afterwards thinking I wasn't happy with that. That's not how I wanted it to go. I acted out of fear, or coercion or anything like that. So when my waters broke on my daughter, my first baby, we went in to be monitored. My blood pressure was high, and wasn't coming down, so I ended up being kept in. And immediately my brain started going to, I thought I was going to be sent home and come back in, and you automatically go into that, that's not what I expected. But quickly came round to, okay, but they're monitoring baby, they're monitoring me, this is the best place for us. And ended up so they gave me 24 hours for labour to happen naturally then, because my waters had gone. Labour didn't start naturally after 24 hours, so then induction was discussed with me. I felt really confident, really informed. I was asking what are the options for induction. I was happy with those options then, basically. Went over to the labour ward to have my daughter, because after like 24 hours nothing had really happened after being induced, so they took me over to pop my waters. And when they did pop my waters over there, then after being checked I was only like 1 centimetre, pop my waters, and my contraction started immediately, basically, like as soon as I got off the table. Again, I was happy with all of those decisions, because my waters had gone, being induced, after 24 hours, I was happy for that to be the case. And then 7 hours later, 6.5, 7 hours later, I gave birth. So she checked me at one point, the midwife, and I was 8 centimetres, and that was only within about 4 hours, I think, after like the 4-hour check. And it was about 2.5 hours later then that I gave birth to my daughter. And I just, I couldn't believe I did it, because you sort of are thinking about this and you practice it. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, I've just given birth. That's incredible. And my daughter was healthy, and obviously everything was fantastic. But I couldn't stop singing the praises of labour and birth after it happened. So many people who've had babies are like, oh, how are you? Oh, it's understandably it's very different for everybody, and everybody was sort of like a lot. One of my friendship groups, I was the first to have a baby out of as well, and they were like, tell us everything, like what is it like, does it really hurt that much? And I was like, it was incredible. I was like, I didn't feel pain. I don't remember feeling the contractions. I was so in the zone. I just had gas and air, and I don't remember feeling contractions. I was really in the zone, zoning in and out of like my husband's conversations with the midwife. And then I remember pushing, and then I remember that she was here. And everything was really straightforward and fantastic, and she was here and she was healthy. And since then, I've obviously been a big supporter of hypnobirthing, and I was like, it does work, it really worked for me. I appreciate it. It's not for everybody, but like I said, what worked for me isn't, the idea that it's wishy-washy and you're going to, because I wanted a pool birth, and because I was on the labour ward then, because I'd been induced and I needed my waters broken, I was like, I would still really like a water birth if possible. And there's only one room in that hospital on the labour ward with a pool, and I couldn't get it. But still, it was like, well, I'm about to have my baby. At that point, it didn't matter so much to me. It wasn't something I was dead set on. It was like, well, I'm still gonna have my baby. that's the outcome, isn't it? So I was really, really happy with how my labour had gone and birth went. And I think everybody that spoke to me after it could tell that. And I remember like voice noting my friend Hannah, and she was like, are you serious? Like, how have you just given birth? You sound incredible. And like, I was on such a high, I thought, which you are, and your hormones are like, but I was like, that was amazing. So I knew I wanted to do hypnobirthing second time round. I knew we obviously knew we wanted another baby. Knew I wanted to do hypnobirthing second time round. Really, really wanted to try for a pool birth second time round. Even if it was just to use the pool for like pain relief. I knew that's what I wanted. And also, first time round in my daughter's pregnancy, I know I wanted as minimal intervention as possible, and ended up just having gas in air, and found that was plenty. It really helped me. So fast forward to my daughter turning 1, a couple of weeks later, and a missed period. And I was like, so the day before I went back to work after my maternity leave, I thought I'd better do a pregnancy test. It's going to be negative. Obviously, this doesn't happen. After we didn't struggle, but we, tried every month. I was a bit crazy about it on my daughter. So I was thinking, these accidents that people talk about, they don't happen. And then the day before I went back to work on maternity leave, I did a pregnancy test, and we had a little surprise positive pregnancy test. So I'd booked an early test on my daughter as well. So this time round, especially because it wasn't planned, we were like, right, let's get another early test, check everything's okay, which is when we were told that it was twins, which was another big surprise. So we couldn't believe it, obviously. And I think we handled it better than anybody we told, because I think we were in such a state of shock. We just kept laughing because it didn't feel real. And everyone was like, oh, how are you going to cope? Oh, you're going to have 3 under 2. And we thought 2 under 2 was going to be wild. And then we realized we were going to have 3 under 2. And it just didn't sink in, I don't think, for a while. Then we had an early gender scan, found out it was a boy and a girl. And as second pregnancies do, that pregnancy flew. Obviously, I had a little girl to look after. She'd only just turned 1. I just gone back to work, and things were going crazy. And before I knew it, I think I was about 20 weeks pregnant, not really thinking, every day in my previous pregnancy, it was like taking bump photos. It was really, that was obviously my main focus. Whereas this time round, it'd get to bed time and I'd think, I still haven't taken a bump photo. And I'm like 20 weeks pregnant and I'm halfway through, and probably more than halfway, because obviously twin pregnancies don't usually go 40 weeks. I was really lucky throughout that pregnancy as well that everything was pretty much straightforward. Throughout the pregnancies, they were DC twins, they call them medically. So non-identical, separate sacs, separate placentas. So I was really pleased that it was the least complicated type of birth of pregnancy you can have with twins. So yeah, after a while, I sort of realised I haven't really looked into any hypnobirth, and I haven't been practicing anything. I haven't been given any time for myself really, because I've got a daughter, and I'm working, and life was crazy. And we were planning to get, well, we got married as well. We got married in September just gone, so it was all sort of happening at once, and then also just happened to be pregnant with twins. So I was really thinking about, I really need to take some time for myself. Luckily for me, my good friend Hannah had trained to be a hypnobirthing instructor, so she was running local groups to me, and she was like, look, if you're interested, come along. So I hadn't done any groups in my first pregnancy, and I did feel a bit like, oh, even though I know her, I was like, there's other women, like, how is it going to be? Because it can be quite a personal thing. And in my first pregnancy, I was reading the books, and me and my husband were discussing it, and I did wonder how I would feel doing it in a group of other women. But it was really enjoyable. Hypnobirthing in general, just go in and focusing on yourself as well. That was just like such a luxury for me at that time. Life was so busy. And then we started the process of moving house because we knew we were having twins. So it was a very busy time. And I found going once a week to a hypnobirthing group was just the type of relaxation that I needed, but also really helped me connect with the babies as well, because, it does sound awful, but it was a bit of a last thing at night. I'd remember that I'm pregnant, because there wasn't much time the rest of the time to think about it. And I didn't find that it was strange discussing it with other women. If anything, I really enjoyed it. I think, don't get this wrong, I think I was the only one there that previously had a baby. I think the other 3 girls were on their first, it was their first pregnancy. So I was really happy to be able to speak from experience, as Hannah did as well, and say I practiced hypnobirthing previously, and I had a really fantastic experience. And I really enjoyed doing, though there was 4 sessions, so I really enjoyed doing the 4 sessions with Hannah and with the other girls. In the sessions, obviously, we were talking about, so for first time mothers, obviously Hannah was discussing a lot of like what happens during labour, so that they understood it, which obviously I understood, but you do forget some of it. Obviously, it's not something you think about every day once you've had your baby. So it was nice to have the refresher of the understanding point of it, but also have that time to do the relaxation processes and the calming music and just relax. Like, I wasn't going to be going anywhere else, was I, and relaxing for an hour in the evening. So I found it really helped me like remind myself that I'm giving birth again, and to make it a bit of a priority. So I would go home and I'd be like in the bath being like, okay, what have you just learned? Remember to practice. We need to practice, the breathing exercises. And I still felt really quite calm And then I can't remember when, probably quite later on. I was late, week 20 late, 28, 29 maybe. I remember saying to Hannah, I'm really starting to panic about it because it's a twin pregnancy, I'm so, part of me is so relaxed. I trust my body so much. I think I'm going to be able to do this naturally. I want to do this naturally. Same thing. I wanted as minimal intervention as possible, as minimal pain relief as possible. I trust my body, all that. I was like, but I didn't have this niggling thought in my head on my daughter, whereas I do now of, but it's twins. And anytime you say to somebody that you got to have C-section, if you're with twins, everybody would say that's, and I was like, no, I'm planning on giving birth naturally. And they were like, oh, why? And I was like, well, I want to. And it just, the idea of the horror that people found about that starts to give you doubt, because I was thinking, well, can I do this? Like, yeah, giving birth to one is something. Giving birth to two, I remember being exhausted after giving birth to my daughter. It was fantastic and it was magical. But I was like, oh, wow, thank goodness she's here. And I was thinking, am I going to be able to do that again? And then I worried I was being selfish and thinking I want to do this naturally, but am I being selfish to the baby? Is it safer for them to have a C-section rather than like what a lot of people say is first baby might come naturally and then there's an emergency C-section, and is that going to panic me? Is that going to panic my husband? Is the baby going to become traumatized? So I was weighing up that. I wouldn't say weighing up, but it never really entered my mind to say, yes, let's just book in for a C-section. But those doubts were creeping in. So I sat down with Hannah and we did a 3 or 4 hour one-to-one intensive session, and we did it online. And that really helped me then. I think it was just like identifying. She was like, so what are your fears? It was identifying what I'm scared of and sort of discussing it to, looking at the statistics, so she would say it's not like pregnancies can maybe be high risk. It doesn't necessarily mean birth is going to be high risk. Like if you can naturally give birth to one baby, there's no obviously, but there's no real reason you can't give birth to two. They just people are just giving you, like the medical professionals are just giving you things that could happen just so you were aware of everything, which you do need to have. Obviously you need to have all of the information. So obviously I went away feeling a lot more comfortable from that conversation and thinking, and just a lot more confident in myself as well, thinking all along you've wanted to give birth naturally. It's not an airy-fairy idea. It's no, I'm not saying I'm carrying quadruplets and I want to give birth naturally and I want to, I want no intervention, or, I want no support or anything. It was just me saying, I want to try and give birth naturally. I think I can do it. I'm in the right place for it. I was in hospital. I was happy to be in hospital, happy to be consultant led, obviously, with twins. And I was really lucky as well, I suppose, that the type of twin pregnancy was that it wasn't the high risk. It was the lowest risk type of pregnancy. And all of my scans had been really low risk. Everything was always good. The twins were putting on weight. There was never any medical issues with me. So then we got to about 34. So after 30 weeks, my scans were fortnightly. So on my 34-week scan, they were saying the baby boys, it was the level of the oxygen going from the cord to baby. And they were like, it's not awful, it's not off the scale, it's just something that we're going to monitor. So I had a couple of Doppler scans. So that sort of led up to my 36-week scan. And they basically were saying like, oh, we if it doesn't look good, we're going to be looking at inducing around 36 weeks. So I was like, right, okay, because in my mind, I wanted these twins to get to 37 weeks, as everybody does, obviously. I wanted them to get 40 weeks, but I didn't think we would. So I was like, 37 weeks is my aim. They considered fully cooked, by then, hopefully they will have a better chance of not having any complications once they're born. And obviously just letting them get a bit bigger when they're in my belly as well. So I was aiming for 37 weeks. So in the 2 weeks between 34 and 36 weeks, we had a few Doppler scans and everything was looking good. One of the scans might have been not as positive, and then the next one was. And then baby boy's weight dropped a little bit, and then baby girl's weight dropped a little bit. So I went into the 36-week scan like, I think everything's fine. But I knew in the back of my head there'd been like one or two things they were looking at. And I think I'd already had the discussion with somebody at one of the scans, and they said, oh, your consultant basically said if this was the outcome, they wanted to induce you. And I was like 35 weeks at this point. So I said, well, I want another opinion. So I spoke with the doctor there in Prince Charles, and thankfully the doctor was happy with us that we would have like another Doppler or I was having the heartbeat reading. We went back up a few days later, and they listened in, and everything was fine. And he was like, as long as we are obviously checking in on you up until your next scan, and you feel fine, and you obviously let us know if there's any reduced movement, then he said, I'm happy. Because of the reasons that I'd said, he said, babies are safer inside for as long as possible. So 36-week scan, I was 36 plus 1, I think. On the Wednesday I went in, and I knew by this, me and my husband were like experts on whatever reading they were looking for, because it was like, I can't even remember what it is now, but I knew what numbers they were looking for, what was good and what wasn't. So they said like the number in the scan, and I looked at, my mother was with me, and I looked at my mother and I was thinking, I think that's a bit high. So spoke to the consultant after my appointment then, and he said, so because you are now gone 36 weeks, we're getting towards 37 weeks. These are not looking great, these numbers, nothing of massive concern, but we probably would look to be inducing you sooner rather than, waiting another few weeks. Or another few days. So I thought like in a few days I might go into Prince Charles, and induction takes a few days. I thought I'll be closer to 37 weeks by the time the babies actually come, because I was 36 plus 1 at this point. So he rang in. I said, yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to do that. I've had lots of monitoring. There's clearly something that's not quite right. Like, yeah, that's fine. Let's get induction sort of underway. So he rang Prince Charles, and they said, yeah, you can come in tomorrow. And I was like, I thought it was going to be like over the weekend or next week. So I was like, okay, right, we're going in. So like, obviously my bags were packed from early 30s weeks. So I was like, okay, right, we're going in tomorrow. So I left, rang my husband, obviously said, I'm going in tomorrow. It was like midday on the Thursday. So I'm going in tomorrow to be induced. And on my daughter, my husband's paternity leave started when we went in for my waters were broken. It was like the Tuesday, and I didn't get home till the Friday because they gave me 24 hours, and it was still COVID times and he couldn't come. So he like wasted basically a few paternity days. So we agreed that he would go into work on the Friday, because otherwise he's going to be sitting around, and I could not even be induced till the Friday morning. Or you don't know, Gio, everything can be a waiting game sometimes. So I went in on the Thursday then. My husband went to work like normal. My dad dropped me up, said goodbye to my daughter. I was thinking, oh, when I see you next, you're going to look about 8 years older. So I went in still feeling really, really good. I was feeling really positive, a bit emotional, and I think it still didn't quite feel real. I don't really think it sunk in that I was going to be taking 2 babies home. I was going to be having two babies. But I was feeling really good. I'd like downloaded loads of programs onto my tablet that like made me feel good. I was like a Great British Bake Off. I had Gavin and Stacey, like all the things to get the good feel hormones up, and just, to all that type of stuff that you practice really. I had my books, I had like crosswords. And, when you've got a toddler, I was like, this is like a day off, I was like, I'm quite looking forward to going in. Comes to something when you go in to be induced and you feel like it's a day off, don't you? But I was really looking forward to it. I genuinely, I'd had a previous positive experience. Everything was looking positive for it. There was nothing that I was really nervous about. So then I got myself a bit worked up throughout the day then, because they were really busy. I was missing my daughter. I was thinking, I could have come in, because like hours had gone by and nothing had happened. I hadn't even been like checked or anything, which obviously not their fault. They'd absolutely run off their feet, and all the staff, they were fantastic. But you start getting in your head a bit then, you're trying to be positive. And I was just really doubting things, and I was thinking I could not be induced until like tomorrow, and then it could take like 48 hours. And then like I kept saying to people, I want to be home on Sunday for I'm a celeb, because I'm a celebrity was starting. I was like, that is my end goal. And I started really panicking and really thinking I can't do this. I can't just stay in hospital all these days away from my daughter, and just panicking about the unknown really started getting into my head a little bit. I had a bit of like ranty WhatsApps to my friends, like, oh, what's going on? I can't do this. And then was like, right, put your big girl pants on, pull yourself together. You can do this. You don't know what's happening. You're panicking about all these unknowns. You don't know any of it. Just wait to be examined, and we'll go from there. And I'd said to like my parents, I think, or Josh, my husband, I was like, I just want them to examine me and be like, you don't even need to be induced. Off you go, or off you go to the labour ward. I was like, it's not going to happen, I know, but I really want that to happen. And then they did the staff switch over. New midwife came in around 7 p.m, whatever time they come in, 7, half 7, introduced herself, examined me, and said, oh, you don't need to be induced, you're 2 to 3 centimetres. I was like, wow. I said, have you been feeling anything? I said, not really. I said, I do, like, obviously I've got 2 babies in there, and for weeks and weeks when they move, I felt like, oh, I've been like, describing it as like a mild contraction because this, it's a strange feeling. I said, I've been feeling that, but nothing more intense than I've felt for weeks. I'm assuming I haven't been in labour for weeks. And she was laughing. So I was like, so what happens now? Obviously, this was like Thursday night. Josh was still going to work the next day. So I was like, well, he's planning on. I said, so what happens now? So you can go over to the labour ward. And I was like, but now? She said, yeah, right, I'll ring over. I'll see if there's room before we plan anything, and then we'll go from there. So she came back. She said, there's no room at the minute. So what we're going to do is we're going to look to inducing you because your waters are still really far up. And if we can, you can't go over yet anyway. So we're going to look to give you it was the gel, which is what I'd had on my daughter as well. We're going to give you 6 hours for that to see if that works. Either way, you're pretty much going to be going over then anyway, but at least that might start helping the waters drop, or I don't know the medical terms for it, but getting your cervix more ready basically to give birth. So I was like, right, okay, so obviously that's not painful or anything, so I was happy with that. Texting everybody like, oh my god, the babies are coming. My husband was like, I haven't even ordered my kebab yet, what's going on? I was like, don't worry, you can enjoy your evening, love, don't worry. But then obviously he was like planning childcare because he was going to be staying in the house with our daughter that night, dropping her to nursery the next day. All of a sudden now he might have been coming up to Prince Charles in the middle of the night. So I was like, right. So we organised all that. Anyway, my parents and my husband switched houses basically. So my parents were there in my house for my daughter. My husband slept in my parents' house. I was working out like the 6 hours would be around 2 a.m, but never quite happens like that, is it? So all night then basically I was trying to go to sleep. I don't think I got much sleep, but I had my headphones in. I was listening to hypnobirthing relaxation tracks on YouTube, which really helped because I think I was so, when she told me like, oh, you can go over to the labour ward, I was literally visibly shaking. Obviously, you just filled with adrenaline. I was like, I knew it was normal, but I was like, is this normal? I was like, I can't stop shaking. She's like, yes, yeah, it's normal. It's just adrenaline. You're excited. And so that was really helping me calm back down, get back into the mindset. And obviously by then I did know what was happening. I'd been panicking so much about like, when am I going to be induced? How long is it going to take? Suddenly now I had a plan. I was like, I've been induced. I'm going over. Everybody was still happy for me to have these babies naturally. Babies had been head down for a while, both of them. So that was all good. So about 6 o'clock in the morning, then she came to get me and was like, right, off we go. I think she'd already told me it would be around 6 o'clock. So Josh was coming to meet me there for 6 o'clock. So over we went to the labour ward, and we went into this room, and they had like the baby little cots, like the hot cot things ready with like twin 1 and twin 2 written on them. So all the way through the pregnancy, baby boy had been twin A. He was closer to the cervix, and then like towards the end, baby girl like took over. So in every scan, it'd been like, so twin A is there, previously twin B was there, and blah blah. And people were like, I was like, I don't know, it's hard to keep on track, but for basically this is now twin A, they've swapped. And people were like, I'm glad you know what you're doing. So we were like, right, twin 1, twin 2, and I got on the bed, I got comfy. I think I had my waters popped about 7 o'clock. And then, so obviously I wanted to be as mobile as possible. I know that really helped my labour on my daughter. While I've been on the labour ward, I just, or in like ward 21, when I was being induced, I'd been on the ball a lot then, just keeping myself upright, finding it a lot more comfortable, obviously, because this bump was big. And so I got over there and I was saying to that, the midwife was lovely. And I was explaining to her like what my preferences were. I was like, I want at least, I'd written a birth plan, but I don't think it even came out of the bag. I was like, my main things are, I want to be upright. I want to be moving as much as I can. I want to use the birth ball, the exercise ball. And I want as minimum intervention as possible. I give birth to my daughter with gas and air. I really want to try for as long as I can with just gas and air for this time round. I know it might be different. I know it might be more intense. I'm not against anything. If I ask for something, give it. But let's see how I go, basically. So she was really supportive of that. I was on the bed being monitored, but they were struggling to differentiate between the two babies' heartbeats. So I was on the bed for a lot longer than I wanted to be. I think it was like gone 10 o'clock by the time I got up off the bed. And that was just purely because the midwife was saying, look, Leah really wants to be upright. When can she get up, basically? So I think I was still on the monitors. I must have been still on the monitors, but they managed to get it wirelessly. And I was happy to do that because that's the priority. Obviously, they had to check that both babies' heartbeats were okay and that they were picking up both of the babies' heartbeats. It was just annoying because as the contractions ramped up, so sorry, so my waters were broken, yeah. So I was sat on the bed, managing with nothing at first, obviously, because they were so mild, then managing with gas and air, and then they were really ramping up. And by the time I got off the table, and I don't know whether like gravity does that as well, so actually getting up and going to the exercise ball, they really ramped up. So the midwife was like, okay, I'm just going to go outside now. And I think on my first daughter, on my daughter, from like going into labour to being born, I think it was like 6.5 hours, which for first time I was quite quick. So I was like, I'd been saying to the midwives even before they induced me, I was like, I am a bit concerned that it might happen like really quick and my husband misses it. And they were like, right, okay, I know, like we'll keep on track of it. So I was happy then that Josh had arrived before I'd even been induced, obviously, or before I'd been at my waters popped, because I was panicked that it would be really quick. So it was, I don't know, it was about 10 a.m, I'd say. I was on the exercise ball and I felt like but the midwife had left and was like, I'm just outside if you need anything. And I was finding that I was like, I feel like I'm at the end of my tether now of like what pain I can handle. And it just felt different. I didn't feel the type of intensity on my daughter. I really felt like it was quite different just in being able to manage it and breathe through it. A doctor had already come in before, when I was still like in the manageable thing where I think I was having gas in air, but I was able to sort of breathe through it, and you could feel it come in, you could feel it go in, and the doctor who was going to be on hand had come to introduce herself because they'd already told me like this room's going to get busy. Don't panic. It's because there's midwives. There's a midwife for you. There's a midwife per baby. There's going to be you. There's going to be baby doctors. There's going to be, however many people. Like, don't panic. This is completely normal. If you look up when you're giving birth and there's thousands of people here, this normal. I was like, okay. So the doctor had come and had discussed, obviously, stronger pain relief. And the midwife said, no, Leah is happy to stick with gas and air. So the doctor sort of took my hand because I was mid-contraction. She was like, so we do recommend maybe having an epidural because if we need to intervene for second baby, sometimes first baby's born, second baby like flips, then you might need something stronger. And I was still managing it quite well at this point. So in between like puffs, I was like, no. I said, I'm okay. I want to stick with gas and air for now. If I need anything, I need it. And that's my fault. But for now, I'm happy for just gas and air. So she was like, okay. Then another doctor came in and she said, I've never seen a vaginal twin birth. Do you mind if I watch? She's like, I'll come back and forth. And I was like, yeah. And like she'd rung previously, I think. She'd rung through and then she came in and they'd said to me on the phone, look, there's a doctor who's never seen a natural twin birth. And she was wondering if she could be present. And I was like, yeah, bring them all in. I was on the gas and air by this point. I was like, everything's great. So I couldn't tell you if she was there or not at that point. You're not focusing on much else here when you're giving birth. So back to the exercise ball now, when these contractions were really ramping up, I was thinking like, oh, this is getting intense. Sort of felt like I needed a push, but generally just felt like there's a lot of pressure. There's not much gap between it. I'm not managing to like calm myself back down before another one comes, and they're quite intense. And I was like really trying to breathe through it. And then I was like, I had a feel when I said to my husband, I think I'm at like my max. And he was like, okay, what does that mean? I said, I wanted to check me because I think I might be ready to push. And if not, I need an epidural. And he was like, okay, you sure? I was like, yes. I was like, yes, I can't do this. I can't, like, if a switch had switched, or do you know what I mean? It was like something in my head was like, oh, this is hard. I'd done the breathing. I'd really tried to pace my way through it, the gas and air. Because with my daughter's pregnancy, the gas and air helped, but it really helped me be like out of it. As in, like, I don't really remember a lot of it. The time flew, but I remember every minute of the twins' labour and birth. I think the gas and air only helped to a certain extent. It really helped keep the pain at bay for a certain amount of time, and then it was like as if it was a bit too intense, I think. So the midwife came back in. She said, okay, let's, try and examine you. So I was like, okay, I was like praying I was going to be like 10 centimeters. I could sort of feel I wasn't pushing, but I felt like I could feel it starting. But even getting on the bed, I was really struggling. I wasn't fully on the bed. I was on the bed, but I mean, I wasn't sitting properly. I think she was trying to examine me the best way she could, love her. And I was just like writhing. And she said, okay, at about 6 centimeters. And I was, oh, my face must have gone. I was like 6 centimeters. I was like, oh, I can't do this. I said, I need an epidural. And they were like, you sure? I was like, yes. I was like, I know what I need. I can't do this. I need an epidural. So in come the doctors, to be fair, really quick. So they're talking me through all the yeses and nos, and they're trying to like gown me up, and I was out of it. I was like really, really, these contractions had ramped up, and I was just like, yeah. So they were mostly saying to my husband like the consequences, but the list of things that they have to tell you that could happen. With an epidural. I was like, yeah, I'm happy for it. Yeah, whatever. And I knew I was pushing by then. So the midwife, to be fair to her, was like, I think we might be transitioning now. Okay, I'm not sure there's going to be time for an epidural. And I was like, I always hear people say this. How did it happen so fast? This is ridiculous. And I was like crying. I was like, no, I can't do this. I can't do this without an epidural. And she was like, Leah, you can. Now relax. I'm just going to check you again. Okay, I think we might be 10 centimeters. And I was already pushing, I think. So at that point, I'm sure she checked me again, and I was 10 centimeters, and I was already pushing. I mean, that obviously couldn't have lasted. That must have taken a lot longer than I thought, because my daughter was born at 12:02, and I don't know how long I was pushing for, mind. So then I was pushing. Yeah, and I found the pushing obviously just with gas and air. So I found the pushing hard in that I could feel all of it, but I think it's because I'd worked myself up so much as well. By that point, I wasn't in that calm frame of mind. But I do think the gas and air started to help again. Then I felt that it wasn't calming me, but I was just focused on pushing by then, so I wasn't upset or anything by then, because you can't be. That's where all your energy is going. But it was sort of in my head, like, okay, you are now giving birth to twins with nothing other than gas and air. It was like that reality, I think. So I remember the pushing. I don't remember how long I was pushing for, but it felt like days. It wasn't. And they were practicing, well, not practicing, they were trying these different techniques with me, like the rope. So I was pulling the rope, and the midwives were pulling the rope, as like obviously different ways to push and to help get baby out. So I think it was quite a straightforward birth. She was born 1202, so she was head down. And she was born, she weighed 5 pound 7, I think. So everything was all okay. They reassured me baby was okay. Baby came straight onto me. We had skin to skin. That was baby girl. She was first. And then she went to, I think she was then checked by the doctors. Everything was okay. And then she went to dad then. So she went to my husband, who'd stripped off. I told him, now there's two, and we're doing skin to skin. You're going to have to take your top off now. And he was like, oh. I was like, yeah. I was like, because you were probably going to have to have first baby when I'm giving birth to second baby. Like, I'm doing enough. Okay, you can take your top off. So we got lovely photos, to be fair. So he took his top, and there was lots of people in the room. I remember it being busy then. I'd given birth to, they were called, we didn't have names for ages either, so they were baby girl and baby boy for ages, so I'm still really naturally calling them that. They have got names now. They are 3.5 months old now. And then I don't know how long they wait to see if you go into labour naturally, but I don't think it's long. And I wasn't showing any signs of it. So they got the hormone drip set up. I think I'd already had the thing ready in case I needed it. Didn't need it, and then obviously they put it in then for baby boy to be able to him to be pop his waters again, basically. So we were sort of just doing that all again. So they scanned baby boy. He was still head down. So it was all looking good, and they put the hormone drip in and were asking me if I could feel contractions. I had gas and air ready, and I was like, no, nothing. And then I could feel them, okay, starting ramping up, and I don't think I had very intense contractions on him because it all happened so fast. So I think the contractions helped him drop, basically. And the doctor was like there at the end of the bed, and she'd be like, take a breath, because I mean, to be fair, she was just there with her hands ready and she was trying to pop his waters. And like just as I could grab to get, take a breath, she was, without being too rude, she was up there, she was popping those waters. So I was like, oh God, okay, that's intense. And then the waters popped, and it was intense. That's the only way I could describe it. It was like, I thought I was going to float off the bed with the amount of water that came out. I was like, and I could feel myself moving with this intensity of his waters. And I was like, is that the waters being broken? And they were like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's baby boy's waters. And then I could hear them all sort of muttering. It all happened really fast, so I don't remember exactly, but I could hear like muttering. And then someone said, is that a leg? And they said, yeah. And then the midwife could tell that, like, I think I must have been like, what's going on? And she was like, okay, Leah, so baby boy's breech. Okay, so baby boy's come in legs first. But like the intensity of the water being broken, it literally pushed him out. Like I don't feel like I pushed him out much at all. And he was there. And they said one push for the head, because obviously he came out legs first, and I pushed and he was born. And I was like, is that it? And obviously so he came straight onto me as well then. And suddenly I was just like, is that both of them? I was like, are you sure? Like I was counting. And they were like, yeah. I was like, so what happened? And they were like, so he came out breech, but he's okay. So, they checked him over and everything, and he was okay. And he was 5 pound 6. There wasn't much in it. Yeah, and I was just suddenly like, oh my God, like I've given birth with just gas and air. It wasn't the preference towards the end. If there was a bit of time, I think I would have had the epidural. But actually, I was really glad I didn't then, because in the moment, that's what I felt like I needed. But actually, it wasn't too intense, I haven't got any bad feeling about it at all. It is intense because you're giving birth twice, but it wasn't painful. If we didn't now have 3 kids, I would say I would do it again, but I think my husband would leave me. So I have got lovely positive experiences of giving birth both times. And afterwards, I was really glad that I hadn't had the epidural, just in terms of the recovery of it. And like I don't know how much it affects you afterwards, or sometimes it can affect you. I was really glad that I hadn't panicked earlier on and been like, I'll have a C-section, because the reason I didn't want to is because obviously it's major surgery, and I still had a daughter to look after as well. I was like, when I go home, I have newborn twins and a daughter, and my little girl who's a toddler. So all in all, it all went the way I wanted it to, obviously. But and it's not, I obviously always thought that it would. I always hoped that it would, but there's always that thing in your head that it's like, but it's twins. Can you give birth to twins naturally? Is it going to be okay? What? And the second baby did move, but thankfully he moved legs down, and there was no need for any intervention or anything really. Yeah, so it was crazy. And I remember afterwards I said, so did I have the epidural in the end? And Josh was like, no. I was like, oh, I can't remember. And then they were here, yeah, and it was crazy, as you can tell.